expectations is an 8 out of 10. Okay, so that would be an 80. Now, that doesn't mean passing. Passing's a 70. But in a foreign language class, we feel like if you're talking and 30% of what you say isn't right or isn't communicating, then that does not meet expectations. It might be a passing grade, but since a language is kind of different, or even in a math class, for example, it's one thing to make 70% right on a quiz. It's another thing if you're calculating the direction the rocket needs to fly, right? 70% accurate doesn't really cut it. Okay.
The rocket's gonna fly very well. Well, actually, 75%.
If you're the one in the rocket, you want those mathematicians to
No,
make
you don't
accurate.
blindly go.
No, you gotta just.
As a mathematician,
Okay, so I want us to start, and I want us to look at the descriptions for the 8, for the meets expectation. Okay, everybody's looking at the 8 column, the meets expectation. So the first category is, how well am I understood? So if you are just meeting expectations, then your speaking is understood most of the time. That means you may have some spots where a sympathetic listener, and that's who I am, couldn't quite catch what you were saying. I may need to repeat or reword occasionally. Y'all, we do this in English, or whatever your native language is. You get tongue-tied and you have to say something again, or something comes out funny, or you get your words in the wrong order and you have to repeat yourself. That is okay. But the most important part here is my errors do not interfere with communication. Okay, I can still figure out what you're saying. Okay, if you go up in that category, then things are easily understood, so that just means in general your speaking's better. Errors are minor and still don't interfere with communication. If you go down in that category, you're getting more difficult to understand, whether that's due to pronunciation or word choice or where you put your words in your sentence, whatever the reason is. You might have, maybe you asked for some help, maybe I had to nudge you along, and you may have some mistakes in there that make it hard to understand what's your point. Okay? If you get into the 6s, okay, then things are extremely difficult to understand. If you get into 5 or below, which y'all, I do not anticipate anyone being down here in this area. Based on what I hear you doing in class, we shouldn't have anybody down here. But this is, I'm making a bunch of mistakes and I don't have much to say either. So that's kind of like the perfect bad storm. Okay, next category. How involved, pardon me, am I in the conversation? This is where your reactions are going to come into play. Your involvement in the conversation, reacting to what the other person says. So even though this may seem awkward and forced to you, you still have to force yourself to put in those reactions. Also, the follow-up questions come into play there too. So I ask relevant questions to keep the conversation going. So that's going to be your opinion question. That's going to be your who, with whom, where, and when question. So those are your relevant questions to keep the conversation going. I respond to questions. So if your partner asks you, you can answer. And I make follow-up comments. That's your reactions. I am an equal participant in the conversation. Okay. And then you can look and see if I'm going to go up into the 9s and 10s. I'm going to ask a variety of questions. So I'm not asking donde, que opinas, que opinas. Okay, so when we're practicing, you should be forcing yourself to use variety in what you're saying. And then moving down, you ask maybe you missed some questions or your answers are just very basic or something like that. Okay, how easily do I deliver my thoughts? So meets expectations. My hesitations occur, but they seem natural. Okay, it doesn't just go on and on and on and on and on while you're trying to figure out what you're saying. I express complete thoughts. Remember, we're supposed to be speaking in complete sentences. I usually follow what my partner says and respond somewhat easily. Okay, we're gonna talk about what to say if you didn't catch what your partner said. And then above, fewer pauses, always following what your partner says, and your responses seem to come easily. And then obviously below, things are getting tougher for you. And then the last category, how do I demonstrate that I can correctly use the new vocabulary from this lesson? Well, now everybody ought to be getting an 8 in this because I made you talk about vocabulary from this lesson, right? So I successfully used several new words to relate to the lesson to complete the task. But here's the difference. If you just say me gusta, me encanta, you're gonna stay at an 8 at best. You need to make yourself add me fascina, me interesa, those things that we've been practicing all along. You've gotta use variety in the language you're using to move up into the 9 and 10. I elaborate to complete the task. So maybe you provide more than just a 3-word answer. Okay, so my guess for most of my students in Spanish 3, an 80 is not your target grade. Okay? So when we're practicing, be looking for what are the things I can do that'll move me into the 9 and 10 range. Okay? You may not get all 9s and 10s, but the more you get in this direction, obviously the higher grade you're gonna be. Okay, any questions about this? I saw a hand up a minute ago. No? Okay, so, oh, by the way, y'all are gonna hold on to your rubric, put your name on it. La hora is 5, and then when you come to do your conversation next class, you're gonna bring that to me, okay? So you need to hang on to that. Okay, so let's get back to the business of practicing. Okay. So we're gonna do what?
Can you just come check this sentence? Because I had to redo one.
I will in just a second. Okay? We're gonna practice inside twice, and then we're gonna go out in the hall and do tons and tons of practice. You have to practice with different partners so that you are prepared for whatever questions come your way. Okay, so remember the order of events. Andres, I need your attention up here. In English, this is what it's gonna sound like. Hey, hi, do you have hobbies? Yes, I love to play board games. How interesting. So what do you think about board games? I especially like to play Monopoly. Ooh, interesting. When do you play Monopoly? I play Monopoly on the weekends. Oh, fantastic. Do you have other hobbies? Yes, I also like to go to the zoo. How interesting, how good. So what do you believe about the zoo? I think the zoo is interesting and the animals are fascinating. How wonderful. So with whom do you go to the zoo? Notice I changed my question. With whom do you go to the zoo? Oh, I usually go with my cousins. Well, that's interesting. Then the second person says, and you? Do you have hobbies? So now I've turned the table and I've become the asker and my partner's become the answerer. And we go back through that again. Okay, now, what if? Do you have hobbies? Yes, I love to go to the zoo. That's interesting. So what do you think about the zoo? I think the zoo is great. I especially like to go with my family.
That's good.
So what does that mean about your next question?
You have to ask when.
Don't ask who do you go to the zoo with, because you gotta ask something else, because that's gonna show me that you're engaged in that. Okay, so, remember that's how it is. Remember we wanna use some variety in our, reactions, and remember you don't always have to have the que on there. Que fantástico, interesante, que bueno, divertido, right? You don't have to have the que every time. Remember asking someone's opinion. You want to force yourself to ask. You're asking 2 times, you're asking that question. Work on asking it a different way every time. And if you're the answerer, you can either piggyback off of what they asked. For example, if they say, ¿qué opinas? You could say, opino que, or en mi opinión. But really, if somebody says, what's your opinion about cards? For me, cards are really fun. Does that still answer the question? Yeah, you don't have to say opinion. What's your opinion about playing cards? I believe that cards are really fun. I think that cards are really fun. So any of these starter stems will respond to any of these questions. You don't have to piggyback off the question. Okay, and then the follow-up questions that we just started on last class, you're gonna ask with whom, or where, or when, or where, right? With whom, when, or where. And then in each case, you've gotta have a verb in there. So if you're talking to your partner about playing board games, ¿con quién juegas? ¿Cuándo juegas? ¿Dónde juegas? And when you answer, you've got to use a verb in your answer. Juego con mi familia. Juego en mi casa. Juego los fines de semana. You don't always have to have the whole phrase, right? Jugar cartas. Okay? You don't say, oh, well, when do you play cards? Sometimes you might say that, but sometimes you could just say, oh, when do you play? Right? So you got to remember your yo forms, your tu forms for questions and your yo forms for your answers. I added a little cheat sheet out to our wall of cheat sheets out there with these verbs on there, okay, for us to use today. Yes?
Will we have the note card with the word per sentence or something? Will we have that?
You need to prepare assuming that you will have nothing but this. Okay?
So that's gonna be with us on.
You will have this out there when you're presenting. That tells you what I want you to talk about. I don't know that you'll have any of these. You will not have your own personal notes. I can guarantee you that. You may have some cheat sheets, but you're not gonna have your own personal notes. So you've gotta for sure know what hobbies you're talking about, okay? So you need to practice those. Okay, so when we're talking to our partner, what if I don't hear what they say? What if I say, ¿tienes pasatiempos? And they say, sí, me encanta, blah, blah, blah. What are you gonna do if you don't hear them?
¿Qué?
I would prefer not to use que. I would prefer you to use como or mande or otra vez, por favor. Again, please.
You just gotta say hang.
And y'all, we do this in English.
Again?
Hey, do you have hobbies? Yes, I really like to blah. Pardon me?
Again?
Can you say that again, please? Right? So we do this in English. This, as a matter of fact, is like even better because you're having to think on your feet. Oh my gosh, I didn't know what that person said. I gotta get them to say it again. Okay? So today, I want you practicing using those when you need some clarification. Okay, so we're gonna practice 2 times through with partners. You're gonna go the whole way through. Remember, once you've answered your questions about 2 hobbies, you wanna switch that role over and say, ¿Y tú tienes pasatiempos? And then you're gonna go through twice. You're taking 2 laps per person. So you really end up going through this 4 times to get through everything, okay? So I'm gonna have everybody right now, I want you to work with the person sitting across from you. I want one person to be the starting person one time and then switch roles and let the other person be the starting person. Okay, and then we're gonna stop, get some more instructions and go outside. Okay? So, Richard, can you be my swingman? Can you move back and sit across from Duncan? Y'all work together. Okay, go. And I'll be Richard's partner.
I'll ask first.
You're all right. But then you have a verb on the line. Okay, what did you want me to look at? Me encanta jugar los dardos. If you say, when do you go to the movies? Right.
Yo, Lego, los Dardos, Army Things. Mondo. Dennis, Oprah, Hey, Gustav, Minar,
That's on one.
May, Sasuke.
Let's go for some reactions. Hola. Can it double play one? Double play.
The intro song Pienso que el juego.
It's not. Cuando vas al dardo. I go, wow.
Wow. Ask me the fourth question. Me and Kanta, who love video Legos.
Legos?
Yes.
Oh, nice. What do you think of video Legos?
Great.
See what I'm
More different teammates. Matthew, shut up.
So you shut up.
Now you tell him to shut up. Where's Duncan? Up on you. Okay, bueno.
Sorry, give me one minute.
Magnífico. ¿Tienes otros pastillas? ¿Qué piensas
No one has my turkey notes.
No, wait, this is one I didn't have one for because I'm like, Wando.
Okay, here we go.
Wait, one.
So, does everybody at least know what you're supposed to be doing? You know what the drill is, so to speak. Okay, so we're gonna need to go out. We have 28 people in here, so we're gonna have people at spots 1 through 14. Okay, leave 15 vacant. Okay, you have this in your hand. Okay, so you've got your order of events, you've got all your notes. You can use all your notes today. You have a little poster for reactions. You have a little poster of the opinion questions. You have a little poster of how to start your opinions. You have a little follow-up question poster, and I even gave you a poster of what the verbs need to be in those questions. Okay, y'all remember, we're using complete sentences, and for a sentence to be a complete sentence in Spanish, it has to have a verb in it. Okay, you don't have to use the whole phrase every time. Okay, so let's say you're talking about playing cards. You don't have to say, play cards, play cards, play cards. You can just say, oh, when do you play? With whom do you play, right? So sometimes you can just shorten it up a little bit, but still be using complete sentences. Cuando juegas. If you're asking the question, y'all, your question's gonna be directed to who. This is the question word, this is the answer word. Okay, so all your answers are for the most part gonna have O on the end. Okay, now, we can't have any foolishness out there. You really, really, really need to maximize. We're gonna have 30 minutes of practice out there, and you need to maximize that time. So I need everybody to stay put across from your partner until I bump somebody and they start the move. If you and your partner finish, practice again. Oh, let's go over that second part again, whatever, practice again until I bump you. The person with their back against the wall is gonna be the conversation starter, okay? The person with their back against the wall is gonna start the conversation. About partway through, we're gonna switch roles, and then so everybody gets a chance to be first. The people on the inside are gonna be the movers, okay? And each time I tell people to move, you're gonna move one person to the right, okay? We don't need any monkey business, we don't need any traffic jams. When it's time to move, get to the next person so that you and that person can practice. Okay, it's really important that you have this practice and that you have the practice with a lot of different partners. Okay, so I need 14 people with their backs against the wall. So wait, let me see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, there's 10. And then let me get y'all 4. Okay, so we're gonna make an L. Oh, and I skipped y'all. Y'all got skipped. Okay, the back 4 and the people, the top 10, go get under 1 through 14. No, Ellie, you stay here. You go, Greg. Back against the wall. You're under 1 through 14.
They say vert. Vert, are you doing? Vert,
Is that the equal skate?
what the hell is that?
Oh my god.
Oh my god, oh my god. Very good. What is that? Very good. Very good. What are you doing? Where? Oh! Shut up.
Smack me in the face.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Okay, all of y'all need to go, and you need to be, listen, you need to be right in front of somebody so that you can speak at a reasonable volume and still hear the other person.
Go.
Not yelling. Come on, come get it.
Hey, buddy.
Sure, Matthew. Okay, they call me Matthew Hickey. You like to hear it rock.
I'm
Grow for once.
Me gusta fuego al Es muy divertido. Yo juego VR. Los fines de semana.
It's like, so I feel like it's a good 45. What did you say? Which book is this? What? There's an English. Is he?
Muy fantastico.
Shut up. Daddy.
Let it.
Y'all come in real quick.
Let's see this.